All right, let's dive into one of the absolute core topics for your Cambridge O-Level sociology exam, the family. Now, we all think we know what a family is, but when you look at it like a sociologist, you realize it's this incredibly complex, fascinating, and often contested area full of competing ideas. Getting your head around this stuff is absolutely crucial, so let's break it all down.
So, I want you to just pause and think about this for a second. When I say the word family, what pops into your head? For a long time, it was probably that classic image of a mom, a dad, and a couple of kids. But as we're about to see, the reality on the ground today is so much more diverse and, honestly, way more interesting. And this image just gets right to the heart of what we're talking about, the whole idea of friends as family. I mean, these are people who aren't related by blood or marriage, but they've built these incredibly deep support networks that basically do everything a traditional family does. They provide love, they provide help, and this concept is the perfect jumping-off point for our big theme today, diversity.
Okay, here's our game plan. We're going to start by mapping out the landscape of family diversity. Then, we'll get into a huge debate between two very different perspectives, the New Right and the postmodernists. After that, we'll look at the classic functionalist view, and then see how Marxists critique it. And to wrap it all up, we'll do a quick knowledge check with some questions straight from your textbook. Let's get into it.
Right, so first up, let's just explore the sheer variety of ways people are living today. You know, that classic nuclear family, two parents, their kids, it's still around, of course, but it's just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. And as sociologists, we've got to understand the whole picture. What's really striking here is just how many people live outside that traditional family unit. Single-person households, for example, are absolutely soaring. And that could be for any number of reasons. Young people focusing on careers, older people living longer after a partner passes away, or, just people choosing to live alone. Then you have shared households, which are super common for students or young professionals just trying to make rent. And we've already mentioned friends as family, which fills that really crucial emotional gap.
Now let's zoom in on how partnerships themselves are formed. For much of human history and in many cultures today, arranged marriages were the standard. I mean, these were basically practical deals between families focused on things like status, property, social connections. It wasn't really about romance. This is a world away from what we in the West now consider the norm, the love marriage, where personal choice and that romantic spark are seen as the only real foundation for a partnership.
Okay, some key terms coming up, and you really need to have these locked down. Monogamy is pretty straightforward. Married to one person at a time. It's the legal norm in many places. But with divorce being more common, we see a lot of what sociologists call serial monogamy, where someone has a series of partners over their lifetime, but always just one at a time. And then you have polygamy, which is the umbrella term for being married to multiple people at once. And that breaks down into two main types. And this photo is a perfect real-world example of one of those types. This is polygyny, where one man is married to several women. It's practiced in different cultures around the world. The other form, polyandry, one woman with multiple husbands, is actually much rarer. Seeing a concrete example like this really helps a term like polygyny stick in your brain, which is exactly what you want for the exam.
So all this change, all this diversity, it leads us straight into one of the biggest arguments in the sociology of the family. And the question is this: is all this change a good thing? A sign of progress and freedom? Or is it actually a social problem, something we should be worried about? Understanding both sides of this debate is absolutely vital.
Okay, so in one corner, we have the New Right perspective. This is a view that got really popular in the latter part of the 20th century. Thinkers associated with this, like Charles Murray, looked at the rise in different family types and didn't see progress. They saw the breakdown of what they believe is the best, most stable type of family, the traditional nuclear family.
So what specifically are their concerns? Well, they point to a few key trends. They worry about the rise of lone-parent families, arguing it can make it harder to socialize children effectively. They see easier divorce as something that weakens the commitment of marriage. They argue cohabitation, just living together, is an unstable substitute. And they even raise concerns about women working outside the home, saying it's disrupted the family's natural order. For the New Right, all of this adds up to bigger social problems and people becoming too dependent on the state for support.
Now, in the complete opposite corner, you have the postmodernists. They hear the New Right's concerns and just see it totally differently. For them, the whole idea that there's one best type of family is just wrong. They celebrate diversity. They see it as a fantastic sign of individual freedom and choice. In our modern world, we're not stuck in rigid traditions anymore, and that's something to be embraced, not feared. You can really see how these two views are just polar opposites, right?
So, let's just boil it all down. For the New Right, family diversity equals decline.
It's a negative trend away from a golden age of the nuclear family. For postmodernists, family diversity equals expansion. It's a positive move towards more choice, more freedom, more ways to be yourself. This is such a classic clash of sociological perspectives, and being able to lay out this debate clearly is exactly how you're going to score big marks.
Okay, let's step away from that debate for a moment and look at another heavyweight theory, functionalism. Functionalists aren't so much focused on whether diversity is good or bad. They're asking a more fundamental question. What does the family do? What is its purpose? What positive role or function does it perform to keep society stable?
Now, functionalists recognize that the family's job description has changed big time. This table lays out what's called the loss of functions argument really clearly. If you think about pre-industrial times, the extended family was like a jack of all trades. It took care of the elderly, it educated the kids, it was the main source of financial help. But in modern industrial societies, all these specialized institutions have popped up. Schools, the welfare state, banks, hospitals, and they've taken over a lot of those jobs.
So this leads to a really important question. If the family has lost all these functions, what's left for it to do? Is it even that important anymore? Well, the famous functionalist Talcott Parsons said yes, absolutely. He argued that the modern nuclear family has specialized, and now it focuses on two vital functions that no other institution can do quite as well. So function number one is primary socialization. That's teaching young kids the basic rules and values of their culture. But the second one is what Parsons is really famous for, the stabilization of adult personalities. This is often called the warm bath theory. Just think about it. The outside world is competitive, it's stressful. Parsons said the family acts like a warm bath at the end of the day. It's a refuge where you can relax, de-stress, and be emotionally supported, which keeps you sane and ready to go back out into the world.
But you can probably guess that not everybody buys this happy, harmonious picture. Let's bring in a major critical perspective, Marxism. Marxists argue that the family doesn't just serve society in general. Oh no, they argue it specifically serves the interest of one thing, the capitalist economic system, and the ruling class that benefits from it, the bourgeoisie. So for a Marxist, the family is a tool that props up capitalism. How? Well, they say it does it in four main ways. First, it's about ideological control. It teaches kids to accept authority and inequality as just normal facts of life. Second, it's a massive unit of consumption. Families are pressured to buy more and more stuff, which generates huge profits. Third, it literally produces future workers, creating and raising the next generation of labor power. And finally, and this is a dark twist on that warm bath idea, Marxists say that by providing comfort, the family just helps workers put up with being exploited at their jobs, so they don't get angry enough to fight back against the system.
All right, we have covered a ton of ground there, from all the different family types to four big sociological theories. So to help all of this sink in and get you ready for your exams, let's run through some of the check your understanding questions from your course book and see if we can apply what we've learned.
Okay, here's a question pulled straight from that section of the textbook. It's asking for the difference between three types of extended family: vertically extended, horizontally extended, and modified extended. Just take a second and think, what could vertical and horizontal mean in this context?
Now, interestingly, the specific material we've just covered doesn't actually define these three terms. And that's a perfect little lesson in how exams work. They expect you to pull together knowledge from across the entire syllabus. So consider this a great prompt. It's a signal for you to pause, go back to your wider course notes, and make sure you're solid on all the different types of extended family.
Okay, now let's look at some key terms that were defined in the material. Your textbook mentions an empty shell marriage. That's where a couple is still living together, but all the love and affection is gone. They might stay together for the kids or for financial reasons. We've already covered monogamy and polygamy. And finally, same-sex marriage. Its legal recognition in more and more countries is a powerful example of that growing family diversity you can talk about in your essays.
And that brings us right to our final thought for today. This is the question that really sits at the heart of this entire topic. Looking at all the evidence, all the change, is the family an institution that's slowly losing its purpose, like the functionalists might worry? Or is it just incredibly resilient and flexible, constantly adapting and evolving to meet new needs in a changing world, like the postmodernist would argue? There isn't one simple answer, but being able to build a strong argument using the theories we've discussed today, that is what thinking like a sociologist is all about. Thanks so much for joining me.